It's 8 o'clock. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good rainy morning or showery morning.
Yes.
Thank you.
First on the agenda is review and approve of the posted agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Joan, Paul, all in favor of the approved agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Moving on to the consent items, please review and I'll entertain a motion.
I think, and maybe want to double check. I thought on page 5 of the minutes, it didn't list an individual who brought forth that motion. I think the second was by Mark, but I'm not sure.
Know which motion you're...
Yeah, it's about the bridge. The bridge. Sorry about that. That'd be a little clearer.
And I don't have my... Could have been...
It was
Right
Paul.
there, right
I
there.
brought that
right
one.
there.
Yep, Paul brought
Yeah,
it.
see, it says Commissioner Holy seconded, but there's no
But
one.
see, it's way up at the front, the top of the, right there.
Yeah, right there. Yep.
All right, I stand corrected. I'm glad it's there.
Me too.
Anything
Doing a good
else?
job there, Mr. Melby.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So, second.
Warren and Gary, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Moving on to the county board members issues. We'll start with Warren.
Okay, I had an MPO meeting on Wednesday with no significance there. My big event over the weekend was when I got up at 3:30 a.m. on Sunday morning to go out and do my part for the honor flight
Oh, sure.
send off. I drove a golf cart from the parking lot to the terminal, delivering vets. Some of them needed help. Some of them were pretty physically okay. Anyway, it was colder than hell out there, going against that south wind. And the golf carts had no windshields on them.
Mm-hmm.
I had frozen face and frozen fingers and hands or feet, but we got through it. I had 230 vets were sent off in 2 different airplanes, so it was quite a job. And today will be their return, so I'll be back out there this time, working in reverse, taking vets from the terminal back to their vehicles.
Maybe in the rain.
Well, it could be in the rain. I would much prefer the rain over that cold. Well, it's quite an event, and it's that return when they go through the terminal, they come off the airplane. There's band music and there's people congratulating my return, and I mean it's a very emotional event. And some of these guys that they were in some pretty tough times. Probably those that came back from Vietnam and got spit on and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
These guys come through that line and the big tears are running down their cheeks.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us volunteers, their cheeks are full of tears too. So,
Oh, definitely.
but it's quite an event,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way I'll finish my day. My weekends with my grandson playing in the spring football game out at UND. I'm going to go there rather than to the 3-city meeting in Thief River. So that's enough out of me.
The honor flight, my wife's uncle, Leroy Sandro, was on that flight. Most of them are out of Fargo, though, correct?
Mm-mm. No, most of them out of the Grand Forks East and Grand Forks area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know. I think there's like 4 or 5 from my area this time.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, there were 230 of them over the
Because
The
they're
two
taking two
planes.
flights versus just the one.
Mhm.
Okay.
This is the second time they've taken two flights, right? Last time they
Well,
did.
they'd done 2 flights from Fargo before, but the first time in East Grand Forks. Now it's quite an event. And Don Roberts, who's the fundraiser he's a 20-year Marine event or retiree. He works at this program full time. He personally raised over $200,000 for this flights,
Mhm.
and it runs 230,000 per airplane. By the time you get the hotel money and the airplane and the
Mhm.
food and such,
Mhm.
it's quite an event. There's another one flight going out of Fargo now in 2 weeks, and then there's three more out of this general area before this year's up.
Good.
Yeah.
But it's quite an event, and that's my repayment for having gone on flight 3 years ago.
Mhm.
So, all right. Thank you. Gary.
Thursday, the executive finance committees met with Laurel trustees, the board, that's the regional libraries. And on the agenda, obviously, was the budget phase one. It's a little difficult because we're still negotiating regarding what the rental is going to be. I know it's probably at least going to be double. So with that, we came up with, or the finance committee came up with a 8% increase, and that is including using some reserves. So we'll see where that ends up. April 29th, the director of Laurel will be at the Crookston Library. So if anyone in the region has any concerns about what they'd like to see, changes, certainly invited to do that. That's at 6 p.m. I'll be there. If there are any other commissioners that want to attend, fine. If there's going to be 3, then we have to post it. So, just, and what next? Let's see. Finance on Friday. Met with the finance group over Zoom with staff. It's somewhat complex, I think, for our staff for the first time to do, but going okay.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little
Okay.
bit more later. Yeah, I saw you around.
Yeah. But it's I congratulate the staff willing to look at a whole new language, basically. Last night I attended the Crookston City Council. They're into the cannabis decisions that they have to make for their city. So at least looking at the counties list, I think gives them some direction. Obviously, the police.
Doesn't Crookston already have a site?
They do have one, but now they have to go that same process that the county has done
Okay.
with, what their regional, where you can grow marijuana in the city, where you can sell it, that type of thing. All those decisions need to be made. So they're maybe a little bit.
How many retail sites will
behind.
Crookston have then? Just the one?
Just the one. There are some convenience stores that sell little gummies, maybe.
Gummies that they've, yeah, they're in the jar things.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the
Or else
gummies.
there's the infused drinks too.
Drinks, yeah, that's
Because like I know like Hugo's and Foston has them. I didn't realize that. And one day I was checking out and I'm like, oh, how come these are so expensive? And I looked, I'm like, oh, that's why.
They are still looking at the possibility of maybe having a municipal marijuana cannabis sales in their community. I understand Monoma is making millions of dollars so far.
Oh,
We had a little
Lord.
report on that, I think, at a meeting last week.
Public health, yeah.
Yeah, they've already submitted what they thought they would sell in 1 year
Well, times multiple.
times. Was it close to $9 million? $12 million so far, and that was March.
Yeah, 3.5 months, whatever.
Moving on. They're also changing garbage collections, and that does kind of deal with the county. And I think they're meeting with Mr. Steiner and on that. And the swimming pool that they've been struggling with, the heater went out, and that's going to cost $18,000 to repair. And they asked me if the county would be interested in purchasing the pool.
Oh, jeez.
I kind of went out on a step and said no.
I'm gonna write that down.
Unless someone wants a pool.
Anything else?
Tri Valley is going to meet on Monday, 28th, to begin the process of replacing our leader.
That's what I was.
Where's,
Now there,
where's
yes,
Carlson going? All I see was the acronym, and I don't
Thief
know.
River Falls.
Northwest Service Cooperative.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
What is that exactly?
It was set up by the legislature, I believe, to assist primarily school districts, but counties, cities. We used to get our health insurance
Yeah.
through the service co-op. There's other things that they do. May not have been as active as we could be, cooperative purchasing, things like that, but good people there. He'll be excellent.
I was just gonna say that's right up his alley. I never knew what it meant where he was going.
But if you're in Thief, you can stop in their office and say hi, and they've got meeting rooms and staff and everything.
Mhm,
And it's out of Thief River.
mhm.
I think so.
Yeah.
Cover the whole region.
Yeah.
Part of the state.
Yeah. You know, I can kind of see it taken off to be similar to what Sourcewell has gotten to be, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Does it kind of like
They're-
Sourcewell?
They're aligned with Sourcewell.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, there's these service cooperatives are state.
Okay, Gary, anything else? You're done.
I
Paul,
was just gonna mention about the search for Jason's job. His big, and I get stuff all the time. And we've been getting, so there's meetings coming up on that, and then we got the West Central thing in Grand Forks on the 28th as well.
That's in Grand Forks, no, that's,
It's in Grand Forks this meeting.
yeah, okay. I have it in my book, but I haven't gotten to that page yet.
I think it's Halsted.
They're moving. Did they put it back to Halsted? Because they're meeting at AE2S. Because I have a.
I'll double check, make sure.
Well, 18th, the 28th is just a regular meeting, Monday.
Monday.
That's in Halsted. But the one in Grand Forks, I don't have that in my,
Paul is right.
Because I'm going, I have a VA appointment, so I got to do that one. I'm going to join it on my way on the phone.
The in-person meeting is at the AE2S office in Grand Forks.
Yep.
So
that's on Monday.
That's on a Monday.
Oh, I would have been in Halsted about that time.
Yep, that.
I would have seen you in the parking lot.
What's going on?
Okay, I'll have to,
It's at
Check it.
AE2S and
4050 Garden View Drive.
okay.
emailed them and gonna phone in.
What time is that on Monday?
8:30.
8:30, same time.
Same time, but in Grand Forks.
Okay,
okay,
That's all.
that's it. Joan,
We had a AIS meeting, spent a lot of time, talking about budgets, because currently Governor Walz has proposed a 50% cut in AIS funding. So like the county, we get a little over 64,000 a year, and that's what we use to run our program, to hire the techs that we have out inspecting promotional items, maintenance on the eyelids that we have, the CD3, all that type of stuff. So, looking at, 32,000 possibly funding. So just, kind of looking at what our priorities are going forward. And we currently have one part-time and one full-time tech hired. Would like to find another part-time one, but just kind of see how things go, and it's just everything is just really kind of up in the air yet on that. And then I went and we had the open house for the ribbon cutting for the Family Resource Center in Foston. A really good turnout, probably about 40 people that showed up. The community is excited to, have it there. They're going to be there Wednesdays from 12 to 6. And so, I mean, I think it's, and they're on the bottom level in the building where the library is. And I mean, it's just, they went and repainted everything and stuff. And it's a really nice, fresh looking out, area. They've got some murals that are painted on the wall and, just different things. So, excited about that. And then had soil and water meeting. We had the engineers from, like, they call it the North Pod, but it's like the 9 Northwest counties. They do engineering and stuff for different projects. And so we talked a lot about the Cameron Lake issue. And because we've had a lot of sloughing, it's the water quality, just a lot of issues going on there. Um, there's a structure that's actually on private land that has disintegrated. And working with the landowner to see if he will give permission to reinstall that structure. If not, just go ahead with some of the other things and kind of work around that. But there has to be, we have to find out what the legal water level is for the lake too, and that'll kind of determine of how we do things. But I know previously had talked about with doing some riprap around the shorelines, and if that's the way we go, I have to wait till wintertime when there's ice on the lake to bring in the rocks and stuff for that. So, but
Did they ever address the problem with the contamination in that lake?
well, I mean, that's still the water quality issue is,
Wasn't
that's part of the reason why they've segregated the swimming area, because that's its own. But they had issues there a year or so ago, probably 2 years ago now, where it was beaver that had, gotten in through the dividing wall between the two, this dirt. So that was closed, and they had to redo all that. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's going to be a big project, but a lot of that funding will come out of the Clearwater One Watershed, One Plan, because between the Soil and Water District, the city, Red Lake Watershed District, they just all don't have the funds to do this size of a project. So, and then there was also talk about soil health funding, because that's looks like another thing that'll be cut, supposedly. So, and that's kind of something that is, kind of becoming more of a thing on the eastern part of the county too. So, kind of sad to, see if that does get cut when you've got the momentum going, for farmers. So, and then I had the AMC Solid Waste Work Group, and we had presentations from some of the different facilities within the state. And, it's kind of interesting, like some of the statistics that were brought forth. Because, like I said, in Minnesota, every year there's over 3 million tons of waste that's produced, which could fill Target Field 24 times. Or line up garbage trucks from Minnesota to New York, the full circle. So, there's still, there's a lot of garbage that's produced here in the state. And from the Prairie Lakes director, he gave a shout out to Polk County, John and Rich, of the help that they have given them in regards to the use of ash. That was something that, it like some of these different facilities have, like different aspects, but it seems like we cover the full gamut of possibilities of taking care of waste. And, like we've probably are like one of the cheapest in tip fees because like Ramsey, Washington, they said they're 130. And there was discussion too about where the city wants to close their facility, the HERC. But that facility provides a lot of steam for surrounding businesses. I mean, it does, supply steam for Target Field. So, if they do end up closing that, I mean, there's businesses that are gonna have to look at different ways of, having energy. So, and then we had a AMC Board of Directors meeting. It was just virtual this time. And, spent a lot of time on legislative issues. It does sound pretty positive for funding for the SSIS software updates, because I mean, with these no programs that the legislator is requiring counties to do, we can't do it on the programs we have now. And there's a lot of talk of just the lights on budget. So it would just be, the bare minimum of services and funding that the state would do. The last time they did that, it was kind of a fiasco. So, it's there. There's still a lot of unknowns going on there. One thing so we got National County Government Month, and AMC did just a little YouTube, like 2-3 minutes long, and I would like for us to, like maybe show that at like our next meeting or something. So it's just really talks about what the services that counties do, to just kind of explain a little bit more of what we do. And I thought it just was short and just right to the point. And then I had the MAFPA, the Minnesota American or African American Act. And, we're still, we're tasked with putting together a plan for this legislation, but we still don't have the guidance from DCYF of the definitions of active efforts and of disproportionality. So it's kind of hard to try and plan when you don't know exactly the clients that this act is going to cover. And, just discussion of where, like for Ramsey and Hennepin being the pilot projects for this, that where their disproportionality is in the African American population. But, for rural Minnesota, it's not necessarily a specific race of people, but it's more just poverty as a whole. And, so kind of what our clients look like are different than what the metro counties are. And just kind of how that.
But it doesn't that seem like that's the problem? How placing it into that? How do you make it one?
Yeah, and two, like, with once some of these things get sorted out, I mean that workers need the training on how they're supposed to complete this. Well, there's not trainings that are available, and there's so many pegs to get put in the correct places yet. And I don't know that there's even one peg that's put in place right now yet. And like I said, I mean, our work group is tasked with coming up with what this act is actually going to look like and how it's going to be implemented, and trying to figure out what the fiscal costs are going to be. And so, there's just, and, I asked one of the Ramsey County commissioners that's on the work group, and, like I just asked her, I said, okay, like, how are you doing this pilot without knowing like these definitions? And she said, just kind of, they just kind of sat down and, figured out who's affected disproportionality in their county, and just are kind of going with that, but not really sure of, is that what, DHS, what their idea is going to be. So it's just, there's just a lot of things yet. And last night I went to the Union Lake Sarah meeting, spent a lot of time on the pump at Union, and then with the zebra mussels, because I mean, right now they have a cease and desist. They cannot pump unless the water is below 45 degrees, I think, which, and then they take it like at 2 to 3 feet from the top. So, you're getting the warmer water. And they have decided that they're going to do another survey on the lakes in July. And then there was also some talk of what to do with, if there's something to do with the blue-green algae and the snails that are on Sarah. And one of the board members had done some research and called for copper sulfate will take care of both the blue-green algae and help control the snails. But before they can apply for a permit from the DNR to apply it, they have to do a survey to actually figure out what, like whether the blue-green algae is really blue-green, or if it's just a green that has a blue tint to it, or, there's just a
You
lot
don't
of,
know that answer already?
no.
And it takes a lot of copper sulfite to
Well, yeah,
adjust that water.
yeah. So, and then it would be 2 to 3 applications,
Mhm.
A year, and each application is approximately $10,000. So, it's, I mean, there's a lot of money, tied up in all this too. So, and just a couple things that you guys can put on your calendars. June 5th is going to be our district meeting up in Roseau County, and October 30th is the fall district one in Pennington County.
There'll be
June 5th.
emails coming out to that. Yep.
Yeah, but I just thought you could, being I had the dates, that you could put them on your calendars. And
And that's AMC.
yep.
Good. Thank you. I'll save mine for later. I don't really have anything, but Mr. Landsberg, come on down.
Good morning.
Good morning to
morning.
you.
I have a few abatement requests here. And they're over 2,000, so we need to get the board to approve them or review them, and the 3 are West Central Ag. There's one from 2024, and then one from 2025. That one is on the fertilizer plant. About 10 years ago, the state mandated that we split class. They mandated that we exempt fertilizer storage buildings as kind of a way to help the legislature to correct some language that was some vague language in a statute. So, long story short, we had 2 records in our system on it and on all of them, and we took the exemption off after the legislature made their changes, and then this past year or a couple of years ago, we in this particular case they combined the classification into one, and it got in our software between our tax program and our assessment program. They don't quite mesh in a certain way. They don't erase an extra allocation, but they just write over stuff. So it got missed in the process of things, and it was over 2 years, and so obviously it's a large reduction there on those. The third one there is on the old Foston grocery store that was converted over to apartments. Last year, the classification was not updated as it should have been. So, any questions on those before you?
These are actual refunds?
The top one will be a refund. The other 2 are we'll send a new tax statement for 2025.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, I so move.
Second.
Gary seconds. On the West Central, you were aware of a property sale lately?
Yes, that's how it came up. Senex asked about it, and then we there's no way for us to find these or to identify these. As far as I know, maybe Sam knows something that I don't.
No, it would have had to been taken care of when we changed from exempting the containment to just removing that, and that was
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was the sale that prompted.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. All right. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we're approved.
That's all I have, unless you have questions for me. All right, thank you.
Should we move on, Chuck?
Do you want to do your report for the forum, or?
Yeah, it was just dirt. The process of getting some ditches cleaned has been going well, but unfortunately on Sunday, Easter Sunday, a couple of them filled up again. So it's going to be an ongoing problem. Well, hopefully this rain will help, but it's wind for Saturday, Sunday, Monday again. So in excess of 40, 50 miles an hour.
This wind is forever. It's not one day at a time.
Things are changing. But that's it. So.
You want to jump to me?
Sure, we can. If you want to jump.
I don't feel like jumping.
Why don't you just walk and hop?
I'm gonna sit down slowly. Okay. I just wanted to give you a general update because there's been a lot of things going on, and I almost needed to write it down to make sure I could keep track of it myself. I'll just kind of tick through. I didn't get some things until yesterday, and then wrote the memo. I don't know if you got a chance to see it or not, but just a couple things I'll go through. We did get 5 applicants for finance director. We're going to interview 2 this afternoon, see how that goes. Figure out where we are after the interviews and move ahead. 2 candidates were much more experienced than the remaining 3. So
How long has that been out?
I'm trying to remember the dates. It was out for I think 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And we had it everywhere. I didn't get a lot of calls on it, but I think when we came to you, to open it up, said we're not going to hire just anybody. We'll do this until we find the right person. But I will be optimistic, and
Were they local people, so to speak, or regional? Or were they
yeah, I would say
from all over?
Regional.
Okay.
Next, I got Annette Storm. She's actually coming up today from Marshall for the interview. She's going to sit in with me and Joan and Sam. But she's also on investment policies for the board, myself to consider. This is how we manage the county's money. I think we've had some. I've heard them referred to, but I never really saw them. I think we've been relatively conservative, but there are things that we probably should be doing that could help maximize return on the county's funds, and do so in a way that times when money needs to be ready and available, liquid. Done this a couple of places. It's not terribly hard. We'll probably talk to you more in May about it. I think we'll be ready then and look to bring somebody in that can do this for us. But from a board standpoint, because usually the concern is having this investing get away from the county or the organization and put us in a position where we lose money, but that's not the intention. That the policies have to be such that they're pretty much, they only go one way. And if you do investing, and what has happened in the past, of course, for the county is a lot of fixed rate type of investments, CDs and so forth. Gary mentioned he sat in last Friday on a presentation from UKG, which we work with on our timekeeping. We have most of our HR data in Kronos, if you've heard that before. What looking at is moving the payroll from Paymate to the module that we can acquire from Kronos. There is a cost to it, but I've been a little concerned about some of the practices that we've had with Paymate. Paymate is a software that is on our AS400 computer, which is kind of a joke that it's a black box. You can't get into it, can't get out of it. It just does this and our IFS accounting. If we move to Kronos, it can be Windows based. It can be on the servers out in the LEC and be far more flexible. Probably a lot more available to do not only some things in the cloud, but there's some aspects of that's related to payroll that can be done for us. We don't have to necessarily do it ourselves. In particular, year-end tax processing, W-2s and 1099s, that kind of thing. So I had thought midweek last week, if this was ready to bring to the board today, I might even recommend moving ahead on it. I'd like to, but I didn't get the ABDA work plan. Actually, I have it in the packet. Looking at about $32,000, another 10. This is actually a very good price. I know it looks kind of like a lot, but I believe it's less than what we already pay for some of the timekeeping things that we already do with Chronos. The stuff does cost. We will end up looking at whether we need all the card entry points for clocking in, clocking out. Most employees can do it on their computer, but not everybody has a computer, so they're going through little boxes that are stationed around the county. We've got one right here in the mail room. People come in, click in the morning, click out in the evening. But we will need some assistance on this. And the one thing we didn't see on Friday was the part of Chronos that actually augments the recruiting and hiring processes. You can do that all through, if you've ever applied online to a lot of these government jobs, you start with an online form, and that gets uploaded into the entity's software. That's what we can and should be doing. It actually can cut down on the amount of work and clarify process steps. You don't miss things. And that data then can carry through when you select somebody, and now you've already set up their profile and you can move ahead with the onboarding. Theoretically, you can do it all the way until they leave service with the county. But we'll need some assistance on that. The estimate from an ABDO is that this is a $70,000 to $85,000 assistance from them, but kind of really depends. That's the top end. It really depends on what the current staff can do. We're not going to be looking at just having ABDO do this. This is something that we've got to be able to do with our folks. So ideally we'd have the finance director in place. We've got one payroll person with a supervisor, acts as kind of a backup. I'd like to have a little bit more robust training so that we're not just relying on one person really to do payroll every 2 weeks. Payroll should be shortened up. Hopefully it's more accurate, more reports, that kind of thing. Still going to take some time. And I think if you go through the time schedule there, we had talked about October being able to actually transition from Paymate to Chronos. And if we can do that, then I think one of the things I'll look at next year, I'm not going to do that this year because I think we've probably chewed off enough, would be looking at options for either moving IFS, our accounting software, general ledger, off the AS400 into a Windows-based product that does exist, moving it, then we can get rid of the AS400. We don't have to pay the maintenance. We don't have to buy a new one every few years. Save some costs with that. But we could also have the discussion: is that sufficient enough for what we want to do long term?
So when you go to the potential savings, half?
Don't know. I'm pretty confident in the staff we've got. Some of the things I think will probably be a little easier than others. The payroll part of it will be that'll probably be a lot of it. I'm guessing Elisa and Sarah can figure out a lot of the hiring, onboarding thing. But this has always been the problem, is that it's very hard to ask staff to do something different while they're trying to do what they're doing.
What they're already doing.
Yeah, you get kind of caught. So we've got lots of meetings to go on this, and even the
But you're gonna try to implement it through this year, though.
well, I'd like to.
Yes.
Yeah. Payroll really should be under finance, and of course we don't have a finance director, but we do have Annette. So I mean, we've got people positioned to do this. Um, uh, on the rest of it, I haven't even seen it yet because we didn't cover that part of it.
But thus far, this is the only additional expense you have thus far.
That's their estimated cost, and I actually need to follow up with them because they're already doing some of this work in the agreement that we have with them. So you just kind of have to sort it out.
It's one of those double-edged swords. If we don't do it,
Ideally, I'd like to get to the later in this year and have Abdo as a resource, not as
As
an
a doer.
active
not as doing.
finance director support. It's expensive, but if we're going to make changes, we're going to bring in new people. It's very helpful. They have found a number of things already that, frankly, some of it has been a lot more hard than they thought. But probably a big thing is our cash reconciliation has not been where it needs to be, but I think they've gotten it now. I mean, they were working really from the end of 2023 at trying to get those numbers figured out. And this also sets us up then for the audit.
Right. But we knew there was going to be potential extra costs, especially if we were going to implement something like this.
When we start getting into different software, yeah, that's a little bit different than maybe what we signed them up for, but some of the work is probably transferable. I just don't know how much. But I don't think this can go on forever. I mean, we've got to get it to where we're doing the work internally, and we've got new people, which they're open to training and finding maybe shorter ways of doing some things. There's been some things that we don't have to do this anymore. But it's kind of like anything else. If you get behind, it gets very hard to get caught up. And that you can only ask so much sometimes. But it's always important to have everybody working up to their capabilities, and if their capabilities exceed what we're doing, well, then we've got to change how they do things.
And this isn't a budgeted thing. This would come out of.
A lot of the Abdo fees are coming out of ARPA. We did that transfer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We're probably going to exceed that, so now we're looking at fund balance or
Sure.
fund balance. But I do think that even though the cost for their support was never really calculated before, we're not spending what I had been looking at a few years ago on new software. I think we're going to have some choices or some decisions to make, but I'm looking at that Questica budgeting software as maybe a way to shortcut a lot of the data management stuff. What does it all mean? How does it relate to decisions you want to make at the board level or the administration level? Plus, I think it can cut down on but it's really just a lot of manual inputting. I get everybody working on their budget, and they all have to put it into an Excel spreadsheet, which then goes to somebody to type it into IFS. Every 2 weeks, payroll is being generated in Kronos, which is all keyed in, printed out, type it into PayMate, so you can run payroll. Well, that's a lot of work, and it's antiquated, frankly. Just you're limiting what you can understand by the the actual data input. It's just not efficient.
Hopefully not junk in, junk out.
Well, that's the thing, you know, you're doing payroll. It's got to be accurate. It's easier to correct when you underpay somebody. It's very uncomfortable when you've overpaid someone.
Yep.
But some other things, it's just a lot of work. You might only do it.
alicia.helms@co.polk.mn.us
Shut up.
of check scanners and 2024 audit preparation for the Hoffman firm.
I don't know where that came from.
It's going to come in from your computer.
I
When
know
you do
it. Beyond that,
Are you going to keep doing it, or is it
I'm gonna start over.
mentions you?
I understand.
And we want new software?
Well,
I mean, where computers. are
training
funny,
becomes
so-
an important.
She's got more power than we thought she does.
The power, the power of.
So anything else, Chuck, on the update on the
Just a couple,
software?
just a couple other things. We've got several work groups going. Gary sat in with the finance staff, which also included payroll and our HR people. We've got a finance office group that meets every week online with the net. We've got an HR one that has been meeting, I don't know how many, but I know I've sat in on one or two, have had some tangential conversations with them. And then there's the GovAP, which is the software you bought for highway last year to go to electronic vouchers. And that has been rolling out. Darcy has been very good at helping the other departments do that. We used to have all the vouchers in paper. Drove the department heads crazy, but now we've got, you got to do a lot of inputting, but you know, the paper is cut down to minimal. I mean, I'm hardly signing things anymore. I just hit approve, and it goes, it's supposed to go right into IFS. I think by the end of this week, I'm having my first meeting in Quesica, just kind of a general thing, because they're going to need access to our systems to coordinate their software with our data, which also means our line account setup. And I've been talking to Gary and Joe know this because I've talked about for a few years of trying to streamline our line accounts. This is what you see when you're looking at the department budgets, and they got a bunch of numbers, and everybody uses them. Everybody uses them kind of by their definitions. We may have more in there than we need, but we've also have departments that use those line accounts for their own budget management. Which sounds, well, yes, of course they would, but if they get a grant and they set up a line account and all that, there are ways of doing that that don't create the audit trail that we have been generating forever. And working with the net on that. I'm not a finance director, but you know, when you just see a page full of numbers and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, it makes it hard to make decisions. So I think that'll help. But I think that first meeting is on Friday. Most of this stuff is all on Zoom. And then Abdo's worked with mostly the finance staff. I mentioned the cash reconciliation. We're bringing in check scanners so that, you know, particularly with tax season, you just scan the checks and deposit right in the bank. You don't have to pack it all up and take off and go to the bank. And we've got people doing this all over the place. So we'll probably cut down on the amount of that. There'll be fees for those scanners. We'll make some decisions on, you know, what a threshold is that would require having a scanner. But frankly, it's just a lot faster.
On the scanners, who ultimately knows about them? Sam?
No, Annette.
One thing more and more companies have gone to scanner type things, and I'm old school, and my bank makes physical pictures of the cash or the presented checks, and a lot of banks do that. And I'm just hoping that the scanners still allow the picture of the check, because what happening with some companies that are using check scanners, it's in their format and it's just the dollar amount, and it's not even who it's payable to, it's actually to the uh, company that's doing the scanning. And I just hope,
These scanners would come through Bremer. I have assumed that they show them because I bank at Bremer and I can see I have a scan of my checks
Mhm.
front and back with every
Okay,
check transaction. Um, so I assume I'll ask Annette just to make sure of that, but I think for auditing, we would want that.
yep,
And then, you know, in the for tax payments, it becomes, that's probably where it's the most complicated because some guys will come in and they got a dozen properties to write taxes for, and that's usually where it gets to be the most complicated.
Well, hopefully, maybe we'll work towards credit cards. I mean, that's what society's doing now. People don't write checks out anymore, and counties just add on that service charge if it's 3% or whatever. But I think that would be eliminate a lot of the scanners, the checks in and out. The money's automatically in your account. At the same time, you're not dealing with bad checks or anything like that.
yeah.
Not something we need to get into next month, but certainly the future.
I'm opposed to county, and I realize the simplicity of if you've got one or two parcels, but when you're paying multiple parcels and start paying 30, 40, in some cases over $100,000 a year, 3% on top of for credit cards. One, credit cards might not even be available for that amount, and secondly,
Well,
that's
it doesn't mean you have to use
Yeah,
it.
it's a personal choice. You can still use the checks,
Yeah.
goodness. But for most people, even at the license, a lot of those are.
Right now, we offer online for credit card payment. Just in-person transactions are
Sure.
cash and check.
And
But
then-
we've had inquiries about Venmo. You know, I paid some taxes in Hennepin County. I would use Venmo if I wanted. There's many different ways of doing it in a sound manner, PayPal, that kind of thing. But I'll defer. It's not one of the things we've been actively looking at right now. But
Keep it simple and
yep.
And I'm arguing with the Department of Revenue right now in the state of Minnesota. They took income tax on my payroll deposit. They took it out of my account. I made the payment. I got the paperwork. They have it not in their system. And we're arguing, well, we don't have it in our system. Here's my bank records. Here's the printout. I'm old school. And if I wouldn't have printed the payment out, I wouldn't have anything to back up my defense. And they're still not accepting my defense. And it's this electronic stuff is all wonderful and great, but there are glitches in it. But that's enough of my podium.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if anybody has any more questions. I know the audit is getting ready to start, but I want to have a finance committee to go over some of this stuff. It'd probably be next week, and then I'm gone for 3 days at a conference. So I'm already like, how am I going to do this for May 6th? But maybe this will help if you see see this and have questions. Not everything that we saw on Friday is here. We didn't see this. We didn't see this. I can't remember what that is. Payroll services. This one I actually was like very happy to hear this, because for this cost we can get a lot of our year-end tax stuff done without having to make anybody do it. That seems very cheap for that. PE, PM per employee per month. So that's how it's based. 340 is our employee count number. So you'll probably see this again in hopefully in a couple weeks, because I'd like to get started, because you know, every day waiting is a day later that we can commit to get it implemented. But I think May 6th it'll be here. So with Gary and Joe, and see if they've got any questions.
And one thing too with the check scanner, then we have to keep the physical checks for, we don't know for sure the time yet, do we?
You know, I don't know that. All I know is that it's like you can't get the check scanners fast enough, as far as I'm concerned. We got taxes coming up here. I mean, people are coming in already and paying, so I don't know if we'll have them in time. I kind of doubt it, but it's not rocket science.
No.
Nothing
We've
cutting edge here.
been doing this for years.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
I want to get out of the way here and let Lisa get up here.
Interviews are this week?
Tomorrow, this afternoon.
This afternoon.
Let's see.
You have 5 or just 2?
Two.
2.
Let's see.
I get the feeling that they're pretty well qualified.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Helms.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tuesday. All right. So today I have 3 items that I'm going to go through. 3 different memorandums of understanding, 2 for the LELs groups, and then 1 for solid waste. So the first one is for the deputy group, and we're requesting approval for sign-on retention and recruiting incentives for our law enforcement personnel, as well as applicant incentives as outlined in the MOU that's attached here. Incentives will be dispersed from the public safety funds given by the state of Minnesota in 2023. So what we're requesting is for the deputies, we currently have 18 positions. And for each of those positions, we'd offer $5,000 to each position for hiring and retention incentive, totaling $90,000. Second of all, for the recruitment incentive, we would offer 10 times 1,000, so $10,000 there to any deputy who were to recruit an applicant. And then as far as the application incentive for any external applicant that submits an application and successfully goes through the interview process, that if there was a referral from a deputy, that deputy would receive an additional $100 for an external applicant that would successfully go through the interview process.
Whether they were hired or not.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So total for the deputies group would be $102,000, $102,500 coming from the public safety fund.
How is this dispersed? Is it by 1099 or?
So it will be taxable, and yes, it's taxable income, but in the attached MOU, which I can get through here, we would start dispersing. Let's see, Jeff, is it attached here? There's a structure to how they would get it. So if this were to be approved, we would, for the sign-on incentive, so $2,000 plus an additional $500 if they were to successfully complete their probationary period and after their 12 months worked, and then they would get the additional $2,500 dispersed in increments every 6 months from July to December. So $500 payments. They don't get it all in one lump sum.
No, and I understand that,
Okay.
but there's a difference between calculating like with normal
Okay.
payroll
Oh, right.
or under a 1099 function.
Well, they're going to get a separate paycheck, and then that would be taxed as taxable income at the end of the year. And I would have to just double check with verify with payroll how they're going to do that.
Because I'm just thinking of the funds available.
Mhm.
If there's payroll taxes due, then you need to account for that in that fund. And if it's just a 1099 disbursement, then there's no payroll taxes or anything on the 1099.
We'll talk about it.
Maybe that's
The numbers that she's giving you are the gross numbers.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And I'm talking the county's net numbers.
sure. We'll take a note and follow up with that.
Yep.
Mark, I don't know the answer to that right now.
Yep.
you would, in all likelihood, just same deductions that they would get on every other check, except for maybe the benefit part, because that's already accounted for. The things that don't need to be included in it won't, but the income tax part, Social Security.
Yep. Okay.
PRAs or
One issue there on Social Security, if you go to 1099, you're paying both ends. So you end up with 15, instead of 7.
Okay.
So it's a cost to the employee to take it that way.
we would be doing 1099s to our own people.
No.
That wouldn't be right, no. It wouldn't
No. Okay, so that one is for the deputy group. It's virtually the same. The next request
Do we have to
MOU.
do these separately or?
Mhm.
Yep.
I so moved
Let's,
then on that one.
I'll second.
Paul and Warren on MOU for the deputies. Any further questions, comments? All in favor of approval of the MOU, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. We approved the MOU.
Just a quick question. The MOUs, those have been sent to the union representatives,
Correct.
and have the employees taken any action, or it's just for kind of information at this point?
No, nothing has been.
They haven't voted or anything.
No.
Okay,
No.
just wanted to see where we're at.
Bring to the board first.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
So this is an offer, basically, at this point. It's not a automatic payment.
This is what we will.
It's what we will if they have to agree, because
Yeah.
it's part of their contract.
And it's an offer, basically.
Basic, yes.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so the second agenda item is a memorandum of understanding for the LELS Sergeants Group. This is similar, but basically the same as the deputies. But currently for essential supervisors, for our sergeants and dispatch supervisor, we have 6 positions. So those calculations total a little bit differently because it's a smaller group, but the same dollar amount is applied. So $5,000 times the 6 positions, $30,000. The recruitment incentive is $10,000, and the application incentive is $2,500 for a total of $42,500 coming out of the same fund. Action requested a motion to approve this MOU as well for recruiting and retention of the LELS Essential Supervisors Group.
Motion to approve.
Move.
Paul,
I'll second.
Warren seconds. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor of approving MOU for the sergeants, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? MOU for the sergeants approved.
Thank you. So the last item that I have is a memorandum of understanding for the operating engineers, the solid waste group. What we're looking at here for this group in particular is request for 7 additional licensure premium rates that are listed. The special provisional boiler license, the second class boiler license A or B, the waste combustor license, the first class boiler license A or B, the in-house equipment certification, the chief boiler license, and the boiler examiner license. These licenses and obtaining these licenses are very crucial to continue to operate our incinerator out in Foston. Our organization is a little different than other organizations where we need to grow our people and develop them within to operate our equipment out there. We can't just hire somebody with these types of licensures to come in and expect to run that. So with this structure, we would be implementing these different rates for obtaining these licenses to our existing employees currently, in hopes that we can grow them again, and then in hopes to retain in the future. All of the rates are listed outlined in the memorandum. As you can see, $1, $2, $3, $4, it goes up $1 to $7. So it's an additional licensure pay for these folks to their hourly rate of pay.
It's very difficult to get these licenses. And then once you
Challenging.
get it,
It's a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
You know, that's done outside.
yeah, and then once you get it, then you gotta be trained on our facility. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and our folks, we want our folks internal to want to do this so that we're
Doing it, yeah.
growing them and developing, because we need those folks to understand how the machines are operated and the boilers are operated. We can't just hire somebody from outside. So my request is to approve the different licensure premium levels for this group.
Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Gary moves, second.
Second.
Joan seconds. Any further questions, comments? All in favor of the motion, the MOU for the operating engineers, Local 49 solid waste, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We passed the MOU.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all we have.
Nothing else for the good of the order?